Today we are learning how to make the stockinette with garter border in our How to Knit for Complete Beginners series, Lesson 3. In Lesson 1, you learned how to make the garter stitch, your basic knit stitch. In Lesson 2, you learned how to make this curly stockinette with pearls and the combination of knits on the right side. But this week we are going to combine the two and do this one right here where you've got stockinette in the middle and then garter border around the outside. We're going to make washcloths, whether you want to make it in a larger, bulkier stitch like this with larger needles, or if you want to make it in cotton, you can do that as well with a smaller needle. So we're going to do that today. We're also going to learn how to work with stitch markers, placing them and working around them to actually help you in a pattern. We're also going to give you a taste of how to walk through and read a pattern. Don't worry, there aren't crazy abbreviations or anything complicated. I'm going to walk it through with you, and we'll continue to build our skills in this series. So again, I'm Kristen with GoodKnit Kisses, and welcome to How to Knit for Complete Beginners, Lesson 3. Welcome to GoodKnit Kisses. We're all about helping you stitch your love and love your stitches. Don't forget, we have timestamps along the bottom or in the description. You can click on them and jump to the skill that you'd like to build today, as well as captions. So we have closed captions on our videos, as well as right and left-handed videos. So be sure and turn those captions on. You can hit that button to speed up or slow down this video, but importantly, go click in the link below to more tutorials if you want to go slow and go back to lesson 1 or 2 for those basic skills, or if you want to jump ahead to the next lesson and see what we've got. All the links are down below. So we're taking our skills of working this knit stitch in the middle as a stockinette by purling on the back, and then we're also putting our skills together of knitting on the border stitches. But how do we do that? Well, one way is to use stitch markers, kind of like this sample here, where I've got a stitch marker hanging out on my needles, and I can work a certain number of stitches and then know that when I get to my stitch marker, I need to change what I'm doing. And then when I get to the next one, I change what I'm doing again. So we're going to be working with stitch markers in this video. You're going to need them big enough, even if you need to use, like, say, a rubber band or something like that, that's small, like a hairband if you don't have any of the stitch markers. You just need it to be able to fit over your needle. So whether you choose to use the larger, chunkier needles or the smaller needles, you can do either one in this video. I am going to go over the supplies that you need. I do want to mention, if you are using the fuzzier yarn we used in the last 2 videos, it's not really appropriate for a nice smooth washcloth, so I'm not going to be using that in this video, but I wanted you to see what it works up to look like. And then I am recommending Bernat Softy Chunky for our option 1, which is using the larger needles. Now it recommends in this ball band, where we talked about how to read the ball band or yarn label, it is a super bulky weight yarn. And then when you look at the needles here, it doesn't say the 15 like we've used in the other one. This one actually goes to a US 11, which is an 8mm. So I've tested it on a couple of different needles to see. This one here, if I work it with the 11s, I get the number of stitches that they say. It works up nice, it's nice and dense. It'll produce a 6-inch square. If I jump up to a needle size of 13, which is a 9mm, it makes something that looks like this, which is really nice too. And that's about a 6.5-inch square. And then if I use the same needles that I told you to buy in the beginning, it makes a really nice loose stitch, and this is a nice face cloth. Okay, so if you want it more dense, you can go with the smaller needles, but if you don't want to buy any new needles and you're using the ones we've used before, just go ahead and work the pattern in this. And you can save that yarn and needles to work a few more patterns that we're going to do later on in this series, so you don't have to make a whole bunch unless you want to, but I want you to know you can save up on that. I am going to show you how to work circulars and see how you can work back and forth in a flat panel on these circular needles. So I'm going to show you those techniques today. You are going to need 2 stitch markers that slide over your needles, and you'll need one that's a locking stitch marker to show you the right side, the good side of your knitting if you want that. Okay, so option 2 is going to be a cotton yarn. This may look a little bit different than what you're used to. It's solid and it's smooth and shiny, and that's because it's a mercerized cotton. You don't have to know all about that, but it's handled a little bit different and treated so it's actually denser, and it's not as absorbent as a regular cotton, but it's got vibrant colors. But what I like about this is it's easier to use for a beginner. So like this has actually kind of a chain construction, and I think it's easier and it shows the stitches really well. It's just easy to work with, and I love the color. So this one is Lion Brand 24/7 cotton, and it recommends a US 6 needle, which is 4mm. However, I used a 7 and I got the same gauge that it says on here. So this is a US 7 needle that's 4.5mm. If you are a really tight knitter, you can use the 7 or even the 8 that I've recommended before. Just test it out on those needles. Just work with what you have. And you can get a non-mercerized cotton as well. That doesn't matter, but a nice number 4 weight cotton and a smaller needle is appropriate. And we'll go over the pattern right now. So be sure and click down below in the blog to get that. So here is our pattern for the needle knit washcloth. We're doing the basic bordered washcloth. I'm showing the picture of both option 1 and option 2 right here. And in all of my patterns, this is the same similar format. So you'll kind of get used to this format. We tried to make it as simple as possible in this one so that you're not having to deal with a whole lot of abbreviations, but get you used to a few things, kind of dipping your toe in the water for patterns. Now this one does include the 2 different gauges that we talked about, the 2 different sizes of yarns and needles. I'm not going to read over this whole thing, but the sections of this area are, we're talking about the materials up here, which I just covered in option 1 and 2. So note 1 is the bulkier and 2 is the smaller. And then we go over those needles here. And then also the notions or extras, the tapestry needle and the stitch marker. And then jumping over to the next page. And if you're on the blog, just keep scrolling. Or you can also get this PDF if you'd like. The abbreviations that we're using are very few. The word repeat is just REP, and then stitches is either ST or STS, or we just spell out stitches altogether. And then RS and WS are the only ones that I really note on here, and you'll see those when we get to the rows, the row numbers, so you can tell which is on the right or wrong side and get used to that. This is an easy skill level. It's going to be about 7 inches or 17.5 centimeters squared. And then notes, when you start reading patterns, it's always good to go ahead and read the notes very carefully because it answers some questions. And if you ever get stuck in a pattern in the instructions section, go back to the notes and make sure you didn't misread something or completely miss a note. I've actually noticed that when I'm reading patterns, if I go too quickly, I may have missed some information up in the notes section. And then tutorial videos, usually in my patterns, this is where you'll go to find the link for the video, which is the one you're watching right now. The last page in this one is actually where it includes the instructions for both of the patterns. We're going to go over the super bulky washcloth instructions first, and it's similar for the medium one. I will show you knitting on both of them just so you can see the difference and how I approach those, but they're basically the same. They just have different cast-ons, and then there's just a couple of little changes. So you're going to cast on your number of stitches, and then row 1 says in parentheses WS. That means that when we work row 1, it's on that wrong side row. And then when we get to row 2, we're on the right side row, and we knit both of those rows. And then we repeat rows 1 and 2 times. That means that we have already done that repeat, and then we do it 2 more times. So you're technically making 3 garter stitch ridges, which is actually 6 rows altogether. And when you're here, this is where you can place your locking stitch marker to mark the right side. You just put it on the front, and we'll show you that on video. And you can see on my sample here, I've placed it. Every time you're on the side with the stitch marker, you'll know that's a right side. And when you're on the one that doesn't have one, you'll know you're on the wrong side. The wrong side is where you're going to be purling. So let's jump back over here, and row 3 is on the wrong side. This is where you're going to be putting your markers on your knitting. Okay, so you're going to be working a number of stitches. Then you're going to put the marker on there and then purl until you have a number of stitches left, and put your marker on and then knit the remaining stitches. And then down here, this is how typically patterns are set up. Once you've given the main instructions of placing the marker, now we have some of the things that get abbreviated later on. You've got row 4, we're going to knit across, okay, that's on the right side. You don't have to do any purling. And then row 5 is the wrong side again. So when you don't see that stitch marker, you're going to knit to the marker, slip the marker, purl to the next marker, and knit to the ends. I'm going to show you what that means, but I just want you to get a concept of what's coming ahead. And then you're going to repeat those rows until you get to a certain length, and we'll go over that too. You will need a measuring tape. I forgot to mention that. And then we'll do the ending together, and then you bind off or cast off all the stitches, and we'll do that together. So if you're working on the medium weight washcloth, you're going to cast on 32 stitches. You'll do 16 for the super bulky. So go ahead and grab your yarn and supplies, and we will begin that right now. All right, we're going to cast on. Again, you can use straight needles. I'm showing circular, that you can work this flat panel washcloth on a circular needle. And I'm going to demonstrate on the larger needles. You need to cast on 16 stitches for the larger, or 32 stitches for the smaller. So go ahead and do that. And just a reminder for the long tail cast on, start with a little bit of a tail and do about 3 times the width that you want for your washcloth. So this is about 7 inches. I'm going to pull out 1, 2, 3, and then I can put my slip knot on, wrap it around my finger, take the back loop over the front loop, take the back loop up and over the front again. Okay, and then we have our tail that goes towards us and the ball in the back. If you always remember ball in the back, you'll have this set up right. So go ahead and place that on our needle, pull it, make sure it still slides. It's not going to fall off, but it's not too tight. Okay, so we're going to grab our yarn, split that, pull it back for our slingshot. We're going to go up through the thumb, around and down at the finger, pull it through down at the thumb, and let it go. Leave that little bit of a spacing. You could put your finger right here after you make that stitch and give it that little space so it'll catch on the front of your fingertip. Go up at the thumb, down at the finger, down at the thumb, let it go, and pull it. All right, continue casting on until you have 16 stitches. For slower videos, the link is down below. All right, pause your video and I'll see you in a moment. You've casted on your number of stitches, and we are now on the wrong side. You notice it because you can see the purl bumps here. You're going to go ahead and knit across all of your stitches for row 1. Go ahead and do that. Again, the knit stitch, you put your needle in, yarn around and over, and pull it on through, and then take off the old. So we put our needle in, go around the needle in the back, pull our needle through, pull that loop through, and then let it hop off. Okay, so continue knitting all the way down, and I'm going to continue on camera. You can pause as needed, and I'm going to show you what I do on my circular needles here. So you can see that my cord is really long. Yours can be long or short, it doesn't matter. If your cord is a little bit more coily than you'd like and it's kind of in the way or it's not soft enough, you can dip it in some hot water and then of course dry it off, but it will soften this cord here. Okay, that's particularly the case if you're borrowing some old needles from someone. They may be very stiff. Okay, so I just did that without thinking about it. Okay, so I just I've knit all the way over to the side here, and then I just turn it, and then my cord is right here, so the needle hasn't gone anywhere. You can't drop a needle. If you do, it just falls down there like that. So you do want to finish a row when you're working with circular needles. You want to finish that out. Same thing with a straight needle. And then when you're done, if you do need to set it aside or go to the restroom or whatever, you can just slide your work all the way down onto this cord here, and put it in your bag and or lay it down on the couch or whatever, as long as you don't have pets, and it will be perfectly fine. You won't drop any stitches. And when you're ready to start again, see where your yarn is, and then you're just going to slide this needle here, put it right back up on here, and you're ready to begin your next row. So we are on the right side row now. You can see the smooth edge of the right side, and this is an opportunity to put in a stitch marker and hang it on one of these stitches to show you what the right side is. So I have this stitch marker here, and I'm just going to go up through one of these purl bumps from the stitch that was just in the row below, and just going to go through that and put my stitch marker right there. Okay, or you can mark the front side of this smooth. But if you pay attention to your bind or your cast on here, you can see that this is a smooth side, and you know that that is the right side. So you may or may not need this, but it's a nice visual when you're a beginner. Okay, so you're going to knit across row 2, same thing. All right, and then when you're finished with row 2, you can repeat what you just did 2 more times. Okay, and that is going to be for the larger size. And let me show you the pattern for the smaller one, the smaller needles. That one is going to be repeated 3 times more. Okay, so here's my row, and now I have that purl ridge from the back, and now what I just knit has a purl ridge back here. You're going to end up with 3 ridges on the front of your work like this. So you have your cast on edge, and you just made this ridge. You're going to make 2 more of these ridges, and then we'll be ready to start the next section starting right here when we come back. So if you're working the smaller needles, you're going to work 4 of these ridges. So you're repeating that section 3 more times instead of 2 more times. Okay? All right, so go ahead and work on your size, and when we come back, we'll work on row 3. We'll see you soon. All right, we're back, and you have already asked the question in your brain, I know, Kristen, why are we on row 3 when clearly I'm at a different row number? Like on this one, I'd be row 7, and this one, I would be row 9. So why is that? Well, that's because in the pattern, it's just showing you that by saying row 3, it's just showing a different type of thing is happening then, but it still corresponds to it's an odd number, and therefore we're working on the wrong side. So if you're on the right side right now, you're going to flip over because you would have just finished that right side row, and row 3 is where we're going to be adding in our stitch markers. So on either size, the small or the large, you can go ahead and be on this side here, which is the wrong side, and you're going to work them both the same way. You're going to work a number of stitches, and then we're going to put a marker on, and then do some purls. So let's go ahead and work the first 4 stitches on our larger needles. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we're going to place the marker. If you're working on the smaller size, I'll show you that in a moment. So we're going to pick up a marker. I'm actually just going to use this little hair rubber band. Look at that, those little plastic tie. We're just going to slip it on the needle that we just used, okay? And then we're going to put our yarn in the front, and then we're going to purl. So go ahead and put your needle in, yarn over, and then push that purl stitch all the way through and slide it off. Okay, so now you're just going to continue purling until there are 4 stitches remaining on the row, and we're going to place a marker here. So go ahead and do that, and I'm going to go over this other size, option 2, with people who want that. So for option 2, you're going to work the first 5 stitches. So go ahead and knit those first 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, and then pick up your marker And I'm going to put this one on here, and coincidentally this marker will actually fit this size 7, well, any smaller needle, but it also will fit the larger one as well. So it just slips right on. And this is a removable one, so make sure that you've got them connected. If you use this particular stitch marker, make sure they're connected. It's a lockable one is what I mean. So slide that on our needle, and then now we're going to move our yarn forward and purl till you have 5 stitches remaining. Okay, so go ahead and purl across, and when you have 5 stitches remaining on this size or 4 stitches remaining on this size, come back to our video and I'm going to show you putting on those other needles and what to do next. All right, we'll see you in a moment. All right, we are ready for our next stitch marker. Your yarn is still in front. You want to go ahead and put your yarn to the back so that you don't forget, because we're going to knit till the end of this row. So go ahead and pick up your next stitch marker and slip it on your needle, and then knit till the end of the row. Now, if you went too far, you knit too many or purled too many stitches, you can always undo them using the technique I showed you in our last video. Let me go ahead and show you that again on this one. Okay, so if you have gone too far, let's go ahead and knit one more purl. If you've gone too far, I'd say I've got 4 left on this one, I need 5. I'm just going to pull back on my yarn here, go ahead and stick my needle into the stitch that was just made, and then we can just slide it off of that needle. Okay, now go ahead and put your yarn to the back before putting your stitch marker on. It's easier to do it now. And then we're going to go ahead and put this next one on. Make sure that this locking one is connected. All right, slide that stitch marker on and go ahead and knit until the end. Okay, pause your video as you need. Now we're ready to work on our next row, which is a right side row. So turn over our needles, and you can see, let's look at this larger one. You can see when I pull this back, you can see how these little purl bumps stick out here, and then all of a sudden it goes down. It's a lower area. See how it has dimension here, and then it just kind of goes down. So all you're going to do is knit across this entire row just as you would normally. So every time you are on a right side row, you will only knit. You will never do anything else. But let's go ahead and approach where we have the stitch markers and what happens when you hit one of those, because you do have to move them. So go ahead and start knitting the first few stitches. Okay, when you get to your first stitch marker, whichever size you're working on, you're going to pick it up with this needle here, just slip it onto the tip there and slide it over, and then continue working as usual. Okay, it's that simple. That's all you need to do. Okay, so go ahead and complete this row. This is row 4, and we're knitting across. Okay, same one here. Let's show slipping that stitch marker. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we're going to pick up the stitch marker. You can use your fingers if you want, but I just use the tip of my needle and then slide it right on over and continue working. Okay, we'll pause our videos and we'll see you in a moment for the remaining of the pattern. So you've knit a row 4, we're on row 5, and this is where more of the mistakes can happen. So just wanted to give you a heads up on this and how to fix that. What you're going to do is for either size, you're only knitting until you get to the marker. Okay, so knit to the first marker. Pause your video if you need to. And then you slip the marker, and then you have to put the yarn in front to purl. So you're just going to go in front here and then purl, okay? And then you're purling until you get to the next marker. So let's just go ahead and do this right here together. And I'm not going to show you on the smaller needles because I don't think you need that demonstration. But I am going to show you, just in case you forget how you can fix it, just in case you forget to put your yarn to the back to make that knit stitch. All right, so you slip your marker for the next one, okay, and then we need to go to the knit stitch. But what happens if you go in here and you go, okay, now I'm going to knit. Let's go ahead and knit. Let's do that. And then you go on the other side and you complete that. Let me just show you the example. I come over here and I start to work. And then I notice when I start knitting, you might notice that, oh, my stitch count is off. I'm like, why do I have an extra stitch here? Like, see, I just did 4 and go, wait a minute, my marker's here, and then I have this weird stitch here. Well, it also doesn't look and behave like a regular stitch. It's just this really extra loose piece. That's because you made an increase, a yarn over increase, and you need to take that out. So yes, it could be dropped, but the problem is now you have extra yarn here. And if you continued knitting, you would have a hole in your work, and then you would be increasing and making it wider. So you'll need to go back, just undo those stitches. And we went over undoing those stitches in lesson 1. Just go back. And now we're going to undo these stitches here. Okay, and now we're coming to that yarn over, and you can see that we just need to put our yarn to the back and then knit our stitches. Okay, and that's how you solve that problem. All right. So here's the instructions for the remainder of the pattern of the main field part, not this end part, but to get us to here to make it even. So I'm going to show you on another sample here, and we'll get to this point. So you can keep knitting, but keep watching this part. So here's my longer samples that I've switched out to show you. So you're going to continue knitting rows 4 and 5 until you reached the desired length. Okay, so how I know how to do that is you're going to take your measuring tape, and you're going to, if you've got the cable needles, it's nice because you can just slide your work to the cable and it's easier to measure. Otherwise, you could measure right up into the bottom of the needle if you need to. But you're going to take your measuring tape, and I'm sorry if on the left-handed video it's flipped, the numbers are flipped, but you just put your 0 right up to the bottom of where the cast-on edge is, and then just pull it right up to the top, and I can see that I'm at 5.5 inches here, which is the number actually for both of these sizes. And I did update the sizes in the pattern from what you saw in the video. The smaller size one is going to be 6.5 for the smaller needle and yarn, and then the larger one is actually going to be 7 inches. This is a sample right here of the washcloth. So the way that you can make adjustments is, say you used a different needle, or maybe you're getting a different width across, is this little trick here. So let's look at this now. Okay, so you're going to take your measuring tape, measure across, and I have 7 inches across. That's what my knitting is. Even if you've got this amount of knitting on here and it's not quite done, maybe you go to what you think is maybe halfway or something, you can come across here, measure at 7. All right, so we know that's our goal. And then I'm going to measure my, this is my, actually, this is my cast on here, and that's my bind off. So here's my nice clean edge, and I want to measure from the edge of that cast on right down here to the very ending of where my border stops. Okay, so I can see it's about 1 1/4 inch. Okay, so I'm going to mark off that 1 1/4 inch, and I'm going to pretend that this is the width of this border, and it's going to be up top here. Okay, so I'm going to measure with an invisible border length plus this border here plus the length here. Okay, so I'm going to put this number down here, kind of hold on to it, and now from the 0 all the way up to this line right here is how I got my 5. So I just kind of pulled it until I found where the 7 is. Okay, and I know my goal is 7, and so I look here and I go, oh, okay, so 7 is what it is. All right, so what is 7 minus this little width right here? Okay, that's actually 5.5. Okay, so going up to here, see how it hits right at 5.5? That's how we get that. So you can notice if you get up to this point and you go, maybe your knitting looks like this, it's only to that point. You know you've got to go to 7. We know we're at 1 1/4 here, so I'm going to mark that, I go up to here and measure, and I stop, and I'm like, oh, I'm only at 5 inches here. Okay, I need to get it to 7. So I know that I have this much more to go. Okay, what is this much more to go? So I can kind of take this amount here. I know this is like non-scientific, but I could actually go here. And before we talk about gauge in here and really confuse you, you can come over here and just lay your tape measure on here and go, oh, I need about 1, 2, 3, 4, 4-ish more rows to work until I get to that point and I want to measure again. So that's just a really easy way to kind of start learning how to kind of get your knitting to the right length. Okay, I hope that's not too overwhelming. I hope that makes sense. Just put that information in your back pocket and bookmark this video, because I promise you, you're going to want to remember that later on. And it's a skill that is really good to know when you're knitting along and you want to get something to a square size or to the right length. All right, so continue on until you get to that length, and we'll meet you back at this point here. See you soon. Okay, so you're on your right side, and you need to go ahead and work your knit stitches for the remainder. So we're just going to knit everything. Go ahead and knit up to your stitch marker. And at this point, it doesn't say it in the pattern, but this is where you can take off your stitch marker. You do not need it anymore. In fact, you don't even need the one marking the right side anymore. Okay, that's just a visual indicator to you. So continue working that, and that's the right side stitch, and so, or right side row, that's row 6, and then the row 7 is the wrong side row, and you're going to repeat that 2 more times if you're doing the larger size or larger bulkier yarn, and you're going to repeat that 3 more times if you're working on this one over here on option 2. So go ahead and do that and pause your video. I'll meet you back up. You should be on a right side row, and we'll do the bind off together. See you in a moment. Okay, so we do have a slower video on binding off down at the link below for lesson number 1. I've gone ahead and bound off this one over here, and let's work on this one. Just a reminder, you're just going to be knitting the first 2 stitches to bind off, and then you slip the first stitch that you made over the second one. Just pass it right up over, okay? And then we knit the next stitch, and then pass that slip stitch over. It's not really a slip stitch, but you're passing this first stitch over the second stitch. Okay? And you just continue going, and when you have your last stitch remaining, you just pull it on through, and then you'll weave in your tails. So you have your beginning tail and your ending tail, and you'll have your finished product. So I'll show you what this looks like when I'm done. There it is with woven end tails. They make great washcloths. All right, so how was that, learning how to make the washcloth with the borders? I hope you found that helpful and really enjoyed looking at patterns in a new way. If you've tried to look at them before, remember that future patterns are going to have a little bit more abbreviation, but this is just a building block, a step. So as you'll join me for all the next lessons, you're going to begin to learn more and more, and we're going to make things a little bit more abbreviated, but you will start building those skills. So please continue to check in with our lessons. Next week, we're going to be learning about the rib stitch and different ribbing, and we'll have a small project for you to work as well with that. And I cannot wait to see your projects on Instagram, so be sure and tag me at GoodKnitKisses so I can see those. Well, we'll see you next time for lesson 4, how to knit for complete beginners, the rib stitch. We'll see you soon. Thanks for joining us today, where we help you stitch your love and love your stitches. See you again soon.